All right, so then we're going to go to the vendors. Let's go to the vendors. Now, this is the other way that we might communicate with the vendors. If you just pay the telephone bill and so on as it happens, you're probably not going to be in here much unless there's a question like at the end of the year when you do your taxes about the telephone bill or something, and this might be one place that you go to. But again, if you track the accounts payable, then you might be in communication with the vendors. They might call you and be like, hey, where's my payment on this particular thing, and so on and so forth. So you can see up top, we have the standard kind of filters up top. So we have a purchase order. So I can say, let's sort all of our vendors by the open purchase orders. That would be the ordering of the inventory. So that would be nice. This one has the one open purchase order. If I then go into that vendor, we see the detail within here, and we have our purchase order, which we can then use to create, say, a bill. We'll talk more about that later. Notice when I go back here, I'm not going to use the arrow up top. QuickBooks' whole integration on their website is basically internal. So you shouldn't need to use this back arrow much. You could, but it would be better off to use the internal functionality typically, because that's how it's designed. So I'm going to go back. So there we are. Then I can go to I can clear the filters. Let's clear the filter. Now we have all of our vendors down here again. And now let's go to the overdue items. So I can go to the overdue, and now I'm sorting these overdue items. Notice I'm not sorting by bill, which is overdue. We did that over here or in the expenses. This is sorting by the vendors which have an overdue bill within them. So if I go into this particular vendor, then I can say, okay, let me look at the overdue bill in here. Now, this isn't typically where you would go to pay the bills, because normally you would go into the bills over here and sort all the bills that are overdue and basically pay them. But if you're trying to search like at a particular vendors that have overdue bills, you could go in here. I can remove the filter this way, and then I can go open bills. So these are the ones that are overdue. These are the ones that are open, meaning they just simply haven't been paid yet, and they're not overdue. And then we've got the paid in the last 30 days. So these are the ones that have been paid fairly recently. And there we have that. We can remove the filters here. And then we've got the 1099s. We'll get more into basically 1099s later, but in the United States for income tax reporting, the IRS wants to make sure that, remember, every transaction has someone purchasing something and someone generating revenue. So there's an expense side of the transaction and a revenue side, right, typically, of every transaction. So that means that from the IRS's perspective for income taxes, they have the leverage on the person that is paying to rat out the person that's getting the money, because the IRS wants to know about the person that's getting the money, because it's an income tax and they have to pay taxes on the money they're getting. So if it's an employee, then we have to actually rat out the employee with a W-2 form given to the employee and the government, and we have to withhold from the employee the money according to the W-4 form. If it's not an employee, but the company is large, meaning they're a corporation, then the IRS is like, you don't have to do anything particularly oftentimes then, because we already have our hooks. We know who this guy is. We've got our hooks in this guy because they're large enough they can't be under the radar. But if they're small and you pay them and they're not an employee and they're not incorporated, the IRS is like, that dude might fly under the radar, so we won't make you withhold, but we are going to force you to give us a 1099 to just rat them out, to let us know that they earned some money and we should see that on their tax return. All right, so we'll talk more about that later, possibly as a special area. And then we've got the new vendor. We can create a new vendor, of course, here. And then you've got your fields. You can adjust your fields. All right,